Fall. October, specifically. The month of ghosts, ghouls, and skeletons. Many skeletons. Which, depending on the context and depiction, can be spooky. Same with memories, or one's own imagination. Creations of the mind left to be distorted by time, making you question just what's real and what wasn't. For this year's spooky season, I wanted to impart on you the memories of an unnerved child living in a haunted house. Hi, I'm Arthur, and I'm a horror newbie. My parents were, and always will be, scaredy cats that felt I shouldn't be exposed to horror media and stories as a kid. The only quote-unquote horror movies I got to see as a kid were Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline, and I loved them to bits. But my parents, on the other hand, despised them. They were too gross and scary, and while now, as an adult, I see why it was taken that way, I disagreed as a kid. Yet, due to my nature to never disobey my parents, I never touched any other horror media intentionally until adulthood. You know how it is, watching kids shows that eventually have that one or two super traumatizing episodes. Honestly, it was a gamble. But why am I telling you all that? Well, I'm of the opinion that kids' imaginations and memories are influenced by what they see and hear. And I didn't nearly consume enough scary media to be imagining stuff like monsters in the closet or people standing in the corner of my room. Yet there's one particular memory that seems to be an outlier. It was 2006, fall, and my family had moved yet again to a new neighborhood. This was the norm for me, as we had very little income and would often need to move yearly to cheaper areas after rent increased again. This time, my parents were renting a house. It was a shocker to me suddenly to go from an apartment to a house for the first time in my life. We have stairs now? Yes, indeed. It was massive, at least for my itty-bitty self. 2 floors, a big old kitchen connected to an open concept-ish dining living room, and a fenced-in backyard with a gap I could weasel through to hang with the neighboring kids, and a garage! I've never had a garage before. That was like a dream. What a mansion. I've never had so much space to run around in. And for the first time ever, 4 bedrooms. My mother was expecting, so one was meant for my brother, and the final room was for guests, such as my grandma, who always stayed months at a time. And all of them were upstairs. At least, according to my parents. According to me, well, there's 2 more rooms downstairs. I remember a hall on the first floor. The entrance was an arch under the stairs that went up to the second floor. Rarely was it ever lit. There was a half bathroom, and at the end, there was 2 bedrooms. I didn't recall my parents introducing these rooms, and I saw each had a person. I never entered, but I peeked through the door frames. One belonged to a man, balding with short brown hair. He was on the chubbier side and often wore a gray t-shirt, dark blue shorts, and he always looked very stressed out. I recall I would see him sitting on the bed's edge or pacing, rubbing his forehead. I wouldn't be shocked if that motion, along with his stress, was what caused his balding. His room was lackluster and sparse. His mattress laid on the floor, barely covered by a sheet. Opposite to him was a small box TV on top of a wooden nightstand. The other bedroom was across the hall from his. A very thin woman with straight, shiny black hair lived there. She was always passed down her bed, as if she worked all night. That or she would be crying on said bed, muffled by the sheets. I never got to see her face. And unlike her counterpart, her bed was on a frame, but with no sheets to be seen. Her mattress had a floral pattern to it, with dark pink and yellow roses. I was used to seeing other people in places we lived. We would often have guests from far away stay for weeks and months, and occasional roommates, such as my second dad, who would rent with us from time to time to get by in paying rent. Needless to say, I never entered their rooms or greeted them. I felt like they didn't want to be disturbed, so I left them be. Soon enough, my brother was born, the day before Halloween. And despite my parents planning a whole room for him, we soon moved. It felt like we were only there for October itself, but it was more like 3 months at least. So we moved on out of there, and I didn't bother to ask who those other 2 roommates are, or where they went. Many, many years later, I would reminisce on the places we've lived in, and I asked my parents who they were. My parents, confused, asked who I was referring to. According to them, we had no housemates. There was no hall under the stairs, no man or woman or couple of any sort that stayed with us. But despite their insistence, I can't shake the memories off. I know memories erode and get fuzzy with years, but I have it so clear in my mind. It must have been because I saw something, right? Some sort of jumping board for my imaginative brain to go wild on. No? But alas, my brother was too young to recall anything, My grandma only stayed a while, and so far no one has ever recognized the description for either person. I'll likely never get an answer as to what I saw or who I saw. A memory to always haunt me, making me question just what was reality in my young, feeble mind. And now it's here to haunt you too. Not specifically the two ghost housemates, but the idea that your memories may not be as correct as you think. Maybe you two have met people in the past that actually never were. Been to places that never existed. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to reminisce with family and ask about the obvious, as maybe it's not as obvious as you once thought. Realized anything already? Have any spooky memories to share? I would love to hear them down in the comments. Today was more of a trick than a treat, and I do have plans for later this month. So if you don't want to miss it, hit that bell button down below and I'll be seeing you trick-or-treaters then.